Hey there, Willowbrook, and thanks so much for doing our daily Devo. Today, we're actually going to be starting a brand new book of the Bible. We are in John. John is the fourth of four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But John is actually set apart from the other three. Did you know that? Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called the synoptic Gospels, meaning they tell a lot of the same stories about the life and ministry of Jesus. Well, John tells us about the life and ministry of Jesus, but he does it in a very separate, distinct way from the other Gospels. He actually uses different language. He has a different approach. He even tells us different stories. And I think even as we begin this first chapter, we'll see a difference. You see, the other three Gospels, they start with the birth of Jesus, kind of giving us some background here. Here's how we got here, but here's Jesus. And John starts differently. It's as if he is doing his very best to come up with the language that would be chocked full of meaning for us to gather and understand just how significant it is that Jesus came to earth. So many of you, a lot of you know me in real life. Like we engage with one another, and a lot of you have been watching these videos for a long time. But something you may not know about me is how I got my name. So my name is Bobby Ann. I actually go by Bobby Ann. And the reason I go by Bobby Ann is because my dad's name is Bobby and my mom's name is Ann. I was actually named after both of my parents, and I go by both of those names. But not only do I carry the name of both of my parents, but if you spent or even saw my mom for like 3 seconds, you know who I belong to. And that's always been true. From the time I was a little girl, people who knew my mom called me Little Ann. You see, we'd go to my mom's hometown or the church that she grew up in, and never did anybody call me Bobby Ann. They called me Little Ann because I looked so much like my mom. And John is wanting us to understand something similar to that idea when we get to verse 18. John says this, he says, "No one has ever seen God, the one and only Son who is himself God and is at the Father's side. He has revealed him." He says, guys, this is huge. Moses himself never even saw the face of God. He could only even see the back side of him. But do you realize that Jesus is here? And when you look at Jesus, when you see him, you see God. No. That wouldn't be true. You didn't actually see Ann when you looked at Bobby Ann, but you saw something that looked a lot like her. Jesus is more. Jesus says, when you see me, you see the Father. In fact, it's in several chapters from now, when we get to chapter 14, Jesus actually says this to Philip. He says, "Have I been among you all this time, and you do not know me, Philip? The one who has seen me has seen the Father." So what do we do with this? I think that one of the things we've got to do when we read scripture. Listen, any scripture, whether you're in the Old Testament or the New Testament, we should be looking for God, because God is all over this book. This book was written so that we would see God. But you want an easy way to do it? You want an almost like the Cliff Notes of it? Read the Gospels. Because when you see Jesus, when you see him in action, when you see him interacting with other people, when you hear his words, you are hearing from God himself. And this is huge. We should be on the lookout, not just to know about God, but to know him personally. But as we engage with him in a personal way, we have to know what is true about him. So as you're reading the Gospels, as we're studying this together, as you see Jesus do things and you watch him walk places and you hear his words, do not miss that this is God himself revealed. to us that we get to see God in the person of Jesus. Don't miss it. It's good. God has come. He has come so that we might know him, so that we might have life, and Jesus is the life. That's what John tells us. Enjoy that. Sit in that, marinate in that today. As you read scripture, as you enjoy Jesus, know that that's God on display being revealed to us. I love you, Willowbrook. Have a happy Wednesday.